This video is going to take a look at different defensive coverages, 5 families of coverages from cover 0 to cover 4, and we're going to look at what those alignments look like and what space they make available to us and how they affect our timeline. Okay, so cover 0 indicates that there are 0 defenders in zone coverage. Everyone is manned up or has box responsibilities. So the first thing with the halo established, we look at where are bubbles of space. They are all above the hard deck. And in this case, there's a 5th bubble because they flooded the area under the hard deck. Cover 0 means that our 5 eligible receivers are all going to be manned up. Corner on the X, free on our R, Willie on our tailback, strong safety on the tight end, and corner on our Z. The advantage of cover 0 to the defense is that all 5 eligible receivers are accounted for, and they still keep a numbers advantage in the box. It's an aggressive defense, and obviously the space we have to attack is deep. Typically, most of our plays, we look at a 3-second timeline for the quarterback in the pocket, but when we have cover 0 or cover 1, we reduce that to 2 seconds. Because the amount of pressure that they can bring, usually if it's a cover 0 or a cover 1, they're going to attach a blitz to that because they have all 5 eligible threats covered, but they also have 6 guys left in the run box. So they can send a 5th guy on a blitz or even a 6th guy on a blitz. If they don't blitz, then that's just another defender or 2 in the pass space under the hard deck. So either way, it just reiterates that if we're in cover 0, we want to attack above the hard deck, or we want to provide routes that break away from the defender. Because if there's man coverage, we either want to take it deep and tack it over the top, or we want to take a route that breaks away from that defender. So in cover 0, the one word association we would have with that is deep. We see cover 0, we want to first attack deep, and then anything that breaks away from the defenders. With cover 1, the one word we're going to use is away. Similarly, we want to use routes that break away from defenders anytime we see a man coverage, whether it's cover 0 or cover 1. There's going to be a lot of man coverage. So cover 1, we have 1 guy above the hard deck in zone space to help out the 4 guys that are in man. We have the corner, the whip, the strong, and the other corner all in man coverage. And they have 1 guy above the hard deck to help out any of those routes. The benefit of the defense to cover 1 is that in addition to having the 1 guy above the hard deck, they still have a numbers advantage in box space. When we see cover 1, we want to use routes that attack, that go away from their strengths. We want to go away from the safety in the zone. We want routes that break away from guys in man coverage. So in looking at cover 1, the bubbles of space still exist. All 4 are above the hard deck. In using routes that break away and that also open up quickly, because when we have predominantly man coverage, we don't have as much time in the pocket. Against normal zone coverages, we say we have 3 seconds for the quarterback to make his decision before he has to release. When he sees cover 1 or cover 0, we're going to shave that off a second down to 2 seconds and go right from a rhythm route to a rush route. We don't have time for the read route when there's heavy man coverage. So we might do like a fade quick out concept here. 1 to lift the coverage, attack this bubble, and a quick out here to get rid of the ball quickly. On the backside, we could send the slot receiver right to the safety and maybe bring 2 defenders along with him, the guy that's covering him and the guy that he can freeze with that space, open up space for other guys, like a tailback up the seam, or we can come back to the X on a slant return. Just the point being that when we see cover 1, we want to set up situations where we can get rid of the ball quickly and into open space of a route breaking away from a man defender. All right, in cover 0 and cover 1, we saw a lot of man responsibilities with the guys underneath the hard deck. As we get into cover 2 and beyond, there's going to be less man responsibility for defenders. The phrase that we would attach to cover 2 to indicate what's open would be middle and hole. This might be a look we could get out of cover 2. The corners are outside the receivers because the responsibility of the safeties is to, kind of drop deep like that. And corners are not allowed to let receivers release outside of them to make it hard for the safeties to reach them in coverage. So that's why corners are aligned on the outside. So that's kind of an indication that they might be sitting in a cover 2. If we see corners sitting at about 6 yards outside the receivers with a too high look, it's a good chance we're looking at a cover 2. So the safeties are responsible for kind of dropping and covering deep halves of the field. So their initial drop is going to lead them towards the hash. And that's why we use middle and hole as our key phrase to understand what's open when we're looking at cover 2. So as the linebackers drop into underneath coverage, you're going to see the middle of the field has a big hole that we want to attack. And then the holes behind, we call it the hole because it's behind the corner and underneath that dropping safety. So if we're running a fade route into that against cover 2, we don't want to send that fade deep. We want to hit it as soon as he gets behind the corner. We want to hit that hole. All right, so when working against a cover 2, the first area of space we want to attack is middle of the field above the hard deck. In high school, linebackers rarely are able to drop beyond 10 to 12 yards in underneath coverage. Really, they don't get much beyond 10 if you look at the film. So this is the area we want to attack first. We might take the tight end, for example, into a cross route over the middle to hit that spot as quickly as possible. We also want to attack those holes with corner routes. We could use a slide corner from this Z because to get underneath this safety. We might use a corner route out of the number 2 to attack the safety and then drop underneath him. We might use a shallow route to keep the underneath coverage honest, to kind of high-low the underneath coverage as well. And we could send a running back out into the flat to hold the corner down. But these reflect the areas that we want to attack when we see cover 2 in the pass game. The next coverage we're going to look at in the base 5 families of coverage is cover 3. The one phrase association we make with cover 3 is seams and weak. So here was our cover 2 shell. Let's roll it over into a cover 3. So the strong safety is going to come down, and we're going to get like a 4-4 look when we see a cover 3 or a 4-2-5. Free safety will come to the middle of the field. So middle of the field is closed, one high safety. And then the corners are going to play just at or above the hard deck and inside the receivers. Their job is going to be to keep these outside receivers out of the seams. That's why they want inside alignment. They want these guys to be forced to make outside releases and to not stress the free safety. We're going to try to do that with things on the inside receivers, like sending these guys up the seams. Like we said, that one phrase is seams and weak is how we're going to attack cover 3. The defenders' jobs in those alleys are for the strong safety to get a collision. That's why we call that the collision tube. And the whip or Willie linebacker out here, he's responsible to collision any free release on or any vertical release on R up the seam. So cover 3, the strengths for the defense, they got 3 defenders above the hard deck to take away and support each other on deep rhythm throws. With 3 guys above the hard deck, though, what they leave open is, they got the 2 bubbles in the seams we talked about, but they also leave bubbles under the hard deck in the flat space. The phrase being attack the seams and weak when it comes to cover three. We have flat space on the strong side too, but weak, why that would be an area we'd highlight there. In this case, with the running back weak, we got a numbers advantage to that side. But also, if we are bringing our run game over here with a zone concept this way, or any kind of run game to the right, you're more likely to get a defensive rollover to the strong side for support. And, if they get a rollover and he needs to drop back, Willie needs to drop back, we just have an advantage backside. So what we want to attack in cover three is first seams, and then weak. But one way to go about that would be with our verts package with 4 verts. Being that bubbles of space are in the seams, we have a 1 high safety in the middle of the field. We want to try and attack him on other side. So our 4 verts gives us vertical routes up each of the seams and each of the numbers. We want an outside release on this seam. When we take a seam with the R, we got to go outside this edge defender. We want him to turn his back to the quarterback. Same thing with the other seam. It might not be that drastic, but we're going to want to attack outside this strong safety and get up the seam. We want to get there fast and avoid collision. That's the point of the releases we'll talk about down the line. But we want to put this guy in a bind. That's the number one way. That's going to be our rhythm portion here in 4 verts. Then we also want to attack this outside the numbers with fades on these corners. Occupy these corners, and the safety's in trouble. We also have adjustments built into the fades, potential comebacks. If these corners have that fade capped and they're above it, we want to turn that into a comeback as a secondary portion of that concept. And then also check release that tailback into the flat to attack the weak side with a shoot route. Another way we might want to attack cover 3 using our quick game would be to use an RPO with maybe an outside zone to the right and pair that with our seam quick game concept. So if we get an outside zone action with this running back here, our quick game seam, when we have a 1 high, we want to try to put this safety, this guy underneath the hard deck, in a bind and kind of find out what he's about. Is he going to come up and bite on this run? And if so, we have a quick game set up behind him with a seam and a fin, a 5-yard in. So quarterback has the option of what he likes out of this safety if he comes up. We have a nice situation here to attack the seam and what comes behind it. Even if he walls, gets up underneath this seam, we work this fin inside the corner. So it's a good 2-man, 2-on-1 pass quick game concept built off an RPO. So how do we like to attack cover 3? We like to attack the seams. We can use our verts concept. We can use a quick game concept. We can use an RPO concept to attack the space that's given to us. The last coverage we're going to look at in the 5 base families of coverages is cover 4. And the one-word association we use to beat cover 4 is flats. So now we have in cover 4, there are 4 deep zone defenders above the hard deck. The strength of cover 4 is exactly that they've basically taken away immediate vertical route space with the exception of the crossover tube above the hard deck. Our benefit to that and what they leave uncovered and the one-word association we want to use to attack cover 4 is the flats. Here are our bubbles of space in a cover 4 look. Let's get those backers adjusted. Okay. So they still have, they're going to have 7 in the run box. They want to maintain gap integrity and have every run gap covered. And that's where these bubbles of space come out in the flats. 2 bubbles to the left side because we have 2 receivers and immediate threat to that space, and it's both of those are uncapped. 1 bubble to the right of the apex because we have 1 receiver and immediate threat to that uncapped zone, and then a bubble deep over the middle. One pass concept we might want to use to attack cover 4 from our immediate concept could be a curl concept, where we send our receiver on a crossing route into the bubble of space above the hard deck, walling off this Willie linebacker, creating space for a curl, or attacking the flat with a check release shoot route out of the tailback. On the backside, we could use a smash concept, high-low that corner, and just get a basic rush hitch in there to take advantage of that space under the bubble or under the hard deck. Again, there's a variety of ways that we can attack the bubbles that are given to us in any situation. And now that we finish this video on coverages, we'll get into our quick game concepts and our intermediate concepts, and we'll talk about how we can use the plays that we have installed to attack these looks.